$7,000 a month. That was the amount that showed up in the contract slid across the mahogany table by Mr. Jenkins, CEO of Apex Technologies and my boss for only 3 months. I looked up from the paper to his cold, calculating eyes and tried to process the offer I had just heard. "You want to pay me to date your son?" The executive room on the 47th floor offered a panoramic view of Boston, but my attention was fixed on the 61-year-old man in front of me, impeccable in his Italian suit. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. I prefer to call it social facilitation, Ethan. Carter needs someone to get him out of that shell. He doesn't trust anyone, and you fit the bill exactly. At 28, I was just a junior analyst trying to build a career. I only knew Carter Jenkins from afar, a quiet guy who rarely showed up at corporate events, even though he held some executive position that probably wasn't even deserved. "This is unethical on so many levels I don't even know where to start, sir. It's a business transaction like any other. Carter needs company. You need to pay your student loan. $7,000 a month for at least 6 months. When I got back to my cube, the proposal kept echoing in my mind. My tiny apartment cost more than half my salary. The college loan took almost everything else. And now, the chance to earn triple what I was making. By dating someone. I refused. 3 times. Until Mr. Jenkins upped it to $10,000 a month and promised a promotion at the end of the contract. 2 weeks later, there I was, sitting in an elegant restaurant, waiting for Carter, with explicit instructions from his father in my pocket. Likes, hobbies, topics to avoid, everything detailed as if I were an actor preparing for a role. "You must be Ethan." A deep voice pulled me out of my thoughts. Carter Jenkins was taller in person, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through my act. My dad really doesn't know how to be subtle about his surprises. "Did he tell you about this meeting? He sets up a casual dinner with a new employee at my favorite restaurant, right on my birthday. I don't need my years in corporate analysis to figure that out." His ironic smile triggered something unexpected in me. I hadn't prepared for the sharp wit behind those eyes. To my surprise, the night went on naturally. Carter was cultured, articulate, and against all odds, funny. I learned he managed the company's sustainability projects, a genuine passion, rather than just a position given by nepotism. In the following weeks, our outings became more frequent. Movies, concerts, walks. Every date was reported in detail to Mr. Jenkins, who seemed truly pleased with the investment. My guilt grew in proportion to my bank balance, especially since I was beginning to enjoy the time I spent with Carter. In our 3rd month together, Carter invited me to his place after dinner. His apartment revealed a lot about him. Clean, modern, with an impressive library and a view of the harbor. Photographs from his travels covered an entire wall, Carter alone in each of them. "I have never seen anyone as uncomfortable with money as you," he commented while pouring me some wine. "Most people I know make a point of reminding me how much money is in my bank account. Maybe I have different interests." "Like what?" His eyes locked on mine, challenging. "You," I replied, surprising us both with my honesty. That's when my cell vibrated. A message from Mr. Jenkins. "How's progress? Has he shown any physical affection? We need to speed this up." Carter noticed my expression. "Do you work at that hour?" "Nothing," I said as I quickly tucked my phone away. But the damage was already done. The moment of connection had been broken. On my way home, I realized how deep I had gotten. The business transaction was turning into something real, at least for me. The money deposited every month now weighed like concrete on my conscience. What had started as a financial deal was transforming into something dangerously genuine, and I had no idea how to escape this emotional maze without destroying the fragile trust Carter was beginning to give me. The moment changed on a Thursday night. Carter invited me to an Apex Technologies charity event, the first time we would appear together in a professional setting. He came to pick me up in his electric Audi, looking sharp in a suit that showed off his broad shoulders and confident posture. "Ready to meet the sharks?" he asked as we drove through the lit-up streets of Boston. I'm not sure if I'm dressed right for the occasion. I adjusted my tie for the 10th time, feeling out of place even in my best suit. Carter glanced at me quickly, a smile forming on the corner of his lips. "You look perfect. They are going to love sinking their teeth into fresh meat." The lobby of the Museum of Fine Arts had been transformed into a sea of crystals, flowers, and influential people. I felt curious stares as soon as we walked in side by side. Mr. Jenkins immediately approached, his calculated smile never reaching his cold eyes. "Carter, good to see you. And you brought company." His assessing gaze landed on me for a moment before turning back to his son. Father, this is Ethan Morgan from the finance department. Of course. Of course. Great work lately, Morgan. He patted my shoulder with a rehearsed familiarity. I see you two have socialized. The discomfort ran down my spine as Carter replied in a biting tone. Yes. It's strange how this happened right after our conversation about expanding my social horizons, isn't it? Tension buzzed in the air between father and son. I was saved when an elegant woman called Mr. Jenkins away to meet an important investor. When he left, Carter gently guided my elbow toward the bar. Sorry about that. My dad has trouble hiding his manipulations. Do you think he is watching us like a scientist watching lab rats? Absolutely. Carter grabbed 2 champagne flutes, offering me one. He probably already has a dossier on you. Full history, psychological profile, romantic preferences. I swallowed hard, the champagne suddenly bitter. Carter was closer to the truth than I had imagined. Why did you go pale all of a sudden? His eyes studied my face intently. Did I hit a nerve? I just don't like the thought of being analyzed. The lie came out easily, but the guilt that followed was overwhelming. The night passed in a blur of introductions and shallow conversations. Carter stayed by my side, his hand occasionally resting on my back or touching my arm. Small gestures that sent electric currents through my skin. To onlookers, we were just 2 men enjoying each other's company. To Mr. Jenkins, we were a promising investment. To me, we were a ticking time bomb. After 3 exhausting hours, Carter suggested we leave. Instead of driving me home, he took me to a secluded overlook with a view of the city lights. The quiet in the car was comfortable, yet filled with anticipation. I think we deserve a break after that social circus, he said as he turned off the engine. Boston glittered below us like an ocean of earthly stars. Carter turned in the seat so that his knee brushed mine. I need to ask you something, Ethan. And I want you to be completely honest. His voice had lost all its lightness. What is really going on between us? My heart raced, every beat amplified by the silence in the car. What do you mean? I never believed in coincidences. We started meeting just when my dad cranked up his campaign to expand my social circle. You work directly for him, and you always seem a little distracted whenever your phone vibrates. The moment I had been dreading for months finally arrived. I looked into those blue eyes that had become so familiar, and something inside me broke. I couldn't keep up the act. Carter, His hands met mine, stopping my confession. They were firm, calloused from outdoor sports that contrasted with his corporate image. You don't need to say it, I think I already know. And then his lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, almost hesitant, an unspoken question. I responded instinctively, my fingers finding their way to his neck, feeling the texture of his short hair. The contact deepened, years of barriers crumbling in seconds. His woody scent filled my senses as our breaths quickened together. When we pulled apart, breathless, the confession still burned in my throat. Carter, I need to tell you something important. He pressed a finger to my lips. Not tonight. Whatever it is can wait until tomorrow. I should have insisted. I should have ended the lie right then. But when Carter pulled me closer, my resolve melted away like fog in the morning sun. The drive to his apartment felt like an eternity squeezed into minutes. We barely made it through the door before his hands were already exploring my body with controlled urgency, unbuttoning shirts and undoing my tie with surprising skill. Every touch was a discovery, every sigh a silent confession. In the minimalist bedroom, with a view of the harbor at night, we dropped our last defenses. The city lights filtered through the wide windows, drawing silver patterns on our exposed skin. Carter led me as though he had known the map of my body for years, not just months. Our mouths met and separated in an age-old dance, while hands explored territories never before charted. He laid me on the king-size bed with reverence, his eyes never leaving mine as if he feared I might disappear at any moment. You have no idea how long I waited for this, he whispered against my neck, sending shivers down my spine. Words became unnecessary. Our bodies were speaking a language older than any word, each movement a declaration, each moan a response. Time stretched and contracted around us, making everything else irrelevant. Carter guided me like a conductor leading an orchestra, building a symphony of sensations that grew more intense with every moment. When we finally became one completely, the outside world ceased to exist. We were just 2 intertwined bodies, 2 souls momentarily in sync, 2 men discovering a pleasure that went far beyond the physical. We reached climax almost at the same time, clinging to each other as if we were castaways at sea. The intensity left me trembling, vulnerable in a way I had never felt before. It wasn't just a desire fulfilled. It was a connection I hadn't planned, hadn't anticipated, and certainly hadn't included in Mr. Jenkins's deal. Afterward, lying side by side and watching the ceiling as our breathing settled, I felt the weight of the lie come crashing back. The comfortable silence could not last, not with that secret pulsing between us. Carter traced lazy patterns on my chest with his fingers. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, his voice husky. "About how we made everything so complicated," I replied, offering only partial honesty. He laughed softly. "Complications are inevitable. It is part of being human. Some complications are choices," I murmured, more to myself than to him. Carter rested his elbow on the bed and studied my face in the dim light. "Is that what you wanted to tell me? Some complication I should know about?" The perfect moment for a confession was right there, offered on a silver platter. I opened my mouth, but the words froze. How do I explain that our entire relationship started as a business deal? How do I admit that every date, every smile, every moment we shared was initially part of a paid arrangement? "It's about your father," I began hesitantly. Carter sighed and lay back down. "What did he do this time? Threaten your position? Offer you a promotion? He has a knack for ruining anything good in my life." "Not exactly. It's more complicated. With my dad, it's always complicated." He turned to me, his eyes suddenly serious. "Look, Ethan, I don't know what he told you or promised, but I want you to know one thing. What happened between us tonight, what has been happening these last few months, is real to me. Truly real." The sincerity in his voice cut through me. "It's real for me too," I replied, and was amazed to realize that it really was. What had started as a farce had turned into something genuine, growing almost imperceptibly with every conversation, every shared laugh, every lingering look. At some point, I stopped faking it and began to feel. The problem was that the original lie still existed, poisoning everything we built afterward. We fell asleep, intertwined, my confession still caught in my throat. I woke before him, watching the sunrise illuminate his relaxed profile. He looked so peaceful, so confident, and in just a few hours, that peace would be shattered. My phone vibrated on the bedside table. A message from Mr. Jenkins read, "Progress report today, 10 o'clock. My office." A wave of nausea rose in my throat. He wanted details about the night I'd just spent with his son. Details that would turn something beautiful into something transactional and dirty. Carter moved beside me, his eyes slowly opening, a lazy smile forming on his lips. "Good morning," he murmured as he pulled me into a soft kiss. I responded automatically, my mind racing as I calculated how much time I had left before everything fell apart. "Coffee?" he offered, sitting up and stretching. "Carter, we need to talk." He must have noticed something in my tone because all the lazy morning feelings vanished from his eyes, replaced by sharp alertness. "What happened?" I sat down too, gathering every bit of courage I had. "About your father and me. There is something you need to know." Carter's expression gradually hardened as I confessed everything. The original deal, the monthly payments, the detailed reports to his dad. Every word came out like shards of glass from my throat, slicing through the air between us. $10,000 a month, I repeated, unable to look him in the eye. At first, it was just that for me. A job. A solution to my financial problems. The silence that followed was deafening. Carter stayed still, the sheet covering part of his body, the early sunlight highlighting the angles of his face now frozen in an impenetrable mask. "When were you going to tell me?" His voice was calm, almost clinical. "After how many more nights like this?" "I tried last night, but you chose to sleep with me first." He got up abruptly and pulled on his pants with quick, precise movements. "Of course. It probably would have meant an extra bonus on your next deposit." That accusation hit me like a punch. "It wasn't like that." "Wasn't? Then explain exactly how it was, Ethan." Carter gestured widely, anger finally breaking his calm. "Explain how you agreed to be paid to fake feelings for me. How you reported every intimate detail to my father. How you turned my life into a sick social experiment." "Things changed," I insisted, standing up as well. "What I feel for you now is real." He laughed, a bitter sound I had never heard from him before. "And why should I believe that? Just because the hired sex worker from my father says they fell in love with the client. How convenient." That word made me recoil as if I had been slapped. Carter noticed, his expression wavering for a moment with a flash of remorse before his cold mask returned. "Carter, I understand your anger, but every moment we shared in these past months became genuine for me. So genuine that you still accepted the money. He picked up his shirt from the floor and put it on with brusque movements. So genuine that you were ready to meet my dad at 10 o'clock today to report about our night together. I realized he had seen the message on my phone. I was going to end it all with him today. Of course you were. I tried to touch his arm, but he pulled away as if my touch were poison. The rejection hurt more than any word. I want you out of my apartment now, he said, his voice back to that cold control. And I never want to see you again. Please, just let me. Now! His shout echoed through the minimalist space. Carter had never raised his voice with me before. His eyes, which were usually warm, were now as icy as a stormy ocean. I dressed in oppressive silence, every second a torment. By the time I was ready, he was already in the living room, looking out at the panoramic window with his back to me, his posture as rigid as concrete. Carter, I tried one last time, standing in the doorway. I know I ruined everything, but you need to know. What I feel for you is the only honest thing I've ever done. He did not turn around. Spare me. I've heard enough performances. I left with my heart shattered, his silence following me like a shadow. In the elevator, tears I hadn't even realized I was holding finally spilled over. Ironically, for the first time since I met Carter, there was nothing fake about my feelings. 3 weeks passed without contact. I was fired from Apex Technologies the day after our breakup. A cold email from HR citing violation of professional conduct policies. No mention of Mr. Jenkins, no further explanation. Just a notice to clear out my desk by the end of the day. The last deposit for services rendered, as Mr. Jenkins called it, had been made the morning after the charity gala. I looked at the sum in my bank account and felt sick. I decided to donate all of it to an organization that supports LGBTQ+ youth in vulnerable situations. It wouldn't erase my guilt, but it seemed like the very least I could do. I managed to get a temporary job at a cafe near my apartment. The wage was only a fraction of what I'd earned before, but there was some peace in serving coffee without carrying corrosive secrets. It was there, amidst the sound of the coffee grinder and the overlapping chatter of customers, that Carter found me again. It was a rainy Wednesday, business slower than usual. When I looked up to take the next order, my heart nearly stopped. Carter looked different, thinner, with deep, dark circles under his eyes and a bit of stubble. He was dressed casually now, without that impeccable corporate look he used to have. "A double American, please," he requested formally, as if we were strangers. My hands trembled as I prepared his coffee. When I handed it over, our fingers brushed briefly. He didn't pull away this time. "Your new job," he commented as he looked around the modest cafe. "It pays the bills," I replied, trying to keep my composure. "And nobody pays me to fake feelings." A flash of pain crossed his face. "Can we talk after your shift?" I glanced at the clock. Only 20 minutes to go. "I can take my break now." We sat at a secluded table with the rain tapping steadily against the window beside us. The initial silence was heavy, filled with unspoken words. "I confronted my dad," Carter began at last. He denied it at first, then tried to justify, saying he was worried about me, that he wanted me to be socially adjusted. He let out a dry laugh, as if I were some broken project in need of fixing. "I'm sorry for my part in all of this." Carter nodded and turned the cup in his hands. "I also found out other things. It wasn't the first time he interfered in my relationships. Apparently, my last boyfriend was also getting incentives." The revelation shocked me. "Carter, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't." He sighed deeply. "I had plenty of time to think these past weeks. About my dad, about you, about us. I am furious with him for manipulating my life like a chessboard. I am hurt that you agreed to be part of this." I looked down, accepting every word as deserved. "But I also understand that my father is very persuasive when he wants something. And maybe at some point, what we had did become real for both of us." I looked up, a spark of hope igniting inside me. It became real for me long before I even noticed. Carter studied me intently. "I quit my job at the company. I am starting my own sustainability consultancy. Without his influence, without his money." "That is amazing, Carter. You have always been brilliant in this field." A small smile touched his lips for the first time. "And my dad is stepping down as president of Apex, officially for health reasons, but really because the board discovered some of his questionable practices." "So what happens now?" I asked, afraid of the answer. Carter took a deep breath, gazing out the window for a moment before turning back to me. "I don't know. The trust has been broken so badly, but I also cannot simply turn off what I feel. I would do anything to win back your trust, Carter. It won't be easy. Not quickly. He reached out his hand across the table, not to touch mine exactly, but as an open gesture. But maybe we can try. This time, without any outside interference, without any payments, without all the lies. Starting from scratch? Not exactly. We can't pretend that nothing happened. His eyes met mine straight on, intense and direct. But we can try to build something honest on the ruins of our past, if you're willing. I nodded, a lump in my throat stopping me from speaking. After a few moments, I managed to say, I'm willing. More than that, it is all I want. Carter finally reached for my hand, a light, hesitant touch, but real. One day at a time then. 6 months later, we were walking along the Boston waterfront, the autumn wind stirring the golden leaves at our feet. Carter had successfully launched his consultancy, and I had started studying again, determined to build a career on my own merits. Our rebuilding was slow and sometimes painful. There were days when the past reared up like a barrier between us, difficult conversations that ended in tears, moments of doubt that seemed impossible to overcome. But there were also nights of honest conversations until dawn, lazy Sundays exploring the city as if it were new to both of us, little daily discoveries about who we really were, without scripts or expectations. You know what I realized? Carter remarked, as we watched the sunset over the harbor. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't change a thing. I looked at him surprised. Not even the deal? The lie? Not even that. He interlaced his fingers with mine. Because it was through that false start that we found something genuine, something we chose, even with all the reasons to give up. Reflecting on our journey, I saw the deep irony. A relationship that started in complete falsehood had turned into the most authentic thing I had ever experienced. The man I met through a business deal became the person with whom I learned the true meaning of honesty and connection. I look back now and see how something so wrong brought us to something so right. Maybe the truest love is the one that withstands deception and emerges stronger on the other side. It is not perfect. We still carry scars that remind us of our past choices. But those are scars we choose to accept in one another every day. This is my story, a reminder that sometimes the most winding paths lead exactly where we should be. That even if the truth hurts, it always finds its way. And that some connections are too strong to break, even when they start for all the wrong reasons. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. If you have ever found yourself at a moral crossroads or discovered beauty in unexpected places, you might understand. Sometimes we have to completely lose ourselves to find out who we really are. And sometimes we need to be exposed in our lies to finally learn how to live honestly.